Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. We are so happy to have you today. For this session, translation will be available. Please make sure to put your headset to follow this session. I will be speaking in Arabic. We are going live into Sky News Arabia. This session is moderated by Sky News Arabia and will be speaking about human-centered cities. I can move to Arabic now.
So, welcome to this session, which will take place in Arabic. It will be about shaping human-centered cities in their infrastructure and services, taking into account the reality of our Arab cities. Most residents of the city have chosen to live in urban areas in the Middle East and North Africa. We have never thought that these cities would suffer because of that choice. We never thought that these cities would stop breathing. I mean that we need to stand next to these cities to help them breathe. These are the cities that are closest to our hearts. They are our cities, which we're talking about in this session. The greater question that needs to be asked here, what is required to make these cities more intelligent or smarter, more productive, and more comprehensive? Some may question maybe investment in smart solutions. Some say in the financing and deploying of technologies. But believe me, the main answer is the human being. Welcome again to this session. I would like to welcome my guests, starting with Mrs. Maimunah Mohammed Sharif, Undersecretary-General of the United Nations and Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, UN Habitat. I would like to welcome His Excellency Minister Fady Jreissati, the Lebanese Minister of Environment. He'll be speaking to us about the major challenges faced by the capital city of Lebanon, Beirut. Welcome, Your Excellency the Minister. We welcome Mr. Dietmar Siersdorfer, Chief Executive Officer of Siemens Middle East and Siemens Limited in the United Arab Emirates. Welcome, Mr. Siersdorfer. We welcome Shireen Shille, who has become a friend after this conference. She is partner and managing director of the Center for Engineering and Planning, and its headquarters in Ramallah, Palestine, which is a city that deserves our standing by it. We would like to welcome Bibop Gresta, co-founder and chairman of Hyperloop. Welcome, Mr. Gresta. We will be talking about this high-tech technology in this session with you. So, where are Arab cities heading? I would love to start this session with Madam Maimunah. We start with the major challenge facing your work at the United Nations. Today, when we talk about smart cities, where do the challenges lie?
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm very fortunate to be together with the great people in this room. And when you look into the, you mentioned about the smart cities and what are the solutions. I think first thing that is the main challenge to the UN Habitat, which was formed 40 years ago, is to really look at what is smart city. Everybody are talking about smart city. Is it gadget? Is it innovation? Is it technology equivalent to smart city? And is it enough to say that we provide the smart city to the cities? They will solve the problem. But we also have to look at people, smart people. So I think this is the way that we look into how UN Habitat, we have been mandated by the member state to implement the new urban agenda and to achieve the sustainable development goal and to provide the better quality of life for the people. So for example, that in our work is that, for example, right to the Arab region and also MENA, where I saw just now on the slide, you mentioned that is 2/3 of the population will be in cities by 2050.
صحيح.
I would like to add on that 75% of the 2050 infrastructure is not built yet now. And 60% of this 75% will be built by private sector. So what type of infrastructure that we want to see in our future cities? And in this sense that for UN Habitat, we have two ways of looking at it. The challenges of the normative part, how do we partner or collaborate with the cities in giving them a guide, technical know-how, expertise, and giving them tools and mechanism and process and system to help the three level at the national level, regional level, or the mayors to implement the new urban agenda and to achieve the SDG. That is one on the normative part. The other part, we also involved in our operational. We have a program in many cities, especially in this area. And you can see that is, for example, for this particular forum, I would like to touch 3 areas. One thing, just to give some basics, I think I'm sure everybody knows about the area of NEMA, the challenges and all that. By 2030, 63% of 487 million will be living in city, in this area, in this region. And now 50 million involved in the armed conflict. And in Arab region alone, 17.5 million have been displaced by conflict. And what is our role? And our role is that we have to look into, we have come up with the six framework, 6 steps. One is to work together with the cities or with the countries, looking into the analysis, giving them a feedback and also a know-how, how to analyze the existing situation. We have our project in terms of, we call it City Prosperity Index. And also we also have a program looking into the global land tool network. Because for us, land is sometimes cause of conflict.
Yes.
And we have the tools. We launched recently the Secretary-General guidance to the land conflict. We have documented the publication of all the lesson learned, and we also have the monitoring. And to me, data is very important. We have the tools to collect data and to look into how we can reconstruct or regenerate the cities at the fastest level in giving the information and data to the decision maker so that they can make an informed decision.
وهذا موضوع رئيسي ومهم جدا في دول أو.
It is important to look into this issue because we have cities that are suffering. And you mentioned 2 important points. Intelligence that is linked to the human being. This is something very important because at the end of the day, we cannot have any achievement in whatever city without the human element, and we have to focus on this point always. The second thing you highlighted, which is of equal importance, is cooperation in order to reach our main goal. Your Excellency, the Minister, we cannot speak about cities suffering without mentioning Beirut. Beirut today, and despite all of its suffering, is still quite alive, with its universities, with its schools, with its political headquarters, the parliament, the hospitals, everything you want can be found in Beirut. So how can we salvage this city and all of its institutions because it is truly suffering today? That's true. But let us go back to the main cause of that. Why in Beirut we have 500,000 cars entering it every single day, where we have the density in Beirut to be the highest in the world? There are 2 main reasons I would like to mention. First, we need to have administrative decentralization. Many cities, not only Beirut, suffer from it. If we leave all services in the hand of the state, if the ministries, the parliaments, and all the services lie in the capital, it's only natural that everyone would like to move to the capital. So the first solution is to have decentralization, administrative decentralization, so every different regions in the north, in the south, in the Bekaa Valley could do or get all the services in their own regions without having to commute to Beirut. This will relieve some pressure from Beirut. Secondly, and yesterday we had a Council of Ministers meeting, we approved 5 industrial zones in remote areas, which means that there will be jobs for the young people in remote areas without having to go to the city every day finding new job opportunities. This too will relieve some of the pressure on the cities. So we need to have administrative decentralization and economic decentralization. We need to create jobs in the different regions to decrease that pressure on cities. I told you 500,000 cars enter Beirut every day. We can mention many figures. For example, 16% of our time, according to the World Bank, is spent in traffic. And this is costly. It costs us 4% of the GNP. Let me digress a little bit to talk about smart cities. I know that UN Habitat works on this issue a lot, but what I believe in is that smart is not about technology. It's not the solution. We have with us Siemens, which is leading. We have Cisco. We have many other companies that can provide all the technological solutions to us. There's no doubt in that. But at least for me, in my city, in Beirut, which is highly polluted, 25% of our pollution comes from cars. We are breathing in poison. Our children are breathing in poison. At least as a Minister of Environment, I need to focus on that issue. So to compare myself to Denmark, for example, in Copenhagen, 100% of its energy is renewable, and it is my dream to be able to have Beirut based on clean energy, renewable energy, to have a public transport. We did have public transport. You remember at the time of our parents, we used to have the train, we used to have tramway, when most neighboring countries did not enjoy such a service. Today, we are backwards because of the war and because of the many crises that Lebanon has gone through. We add to this the pressure from the Palestinian and Syrian refugees. We paid a hard price for these crises, which added pressure on the major cities in Lebanon, not only Beirut. This is the challenge we need to face, and we will face it. We'll face them positively and optimistically. Clean transportation is very important. And the second, green areas. We need to have green areas so that a person living in urban areas would live comfortably. Perhaps for Beirut, this is the main challenge, yes. I will come back to you, Your Excellency the Minister, to talk about a point you mentioned, which is that of the war, which contributed greatly to having Beirut regress a little bit. When you mentioned the issue of public transport, you were attacked. Or, in fact, Mr. Dorfer and Siemens play an important role when it comes to transport. The digital attack that Siemens is conducting. Mr. Dorfer, you live in Dubai. You are leading this digital campaign in the Middle East. And you consider, or Siemens considers, that this is a main component in development and progress. So could you please tell us how Siemens is contributing to this digital progress?
Thank you very much. First of all, I believe that we see a migration into cities, and the cities are getting bigger and bigger. While the minister highlighted that we decentralize also the big cities, still the migration happens. Today we have about 28 cities which are mega cities beyond 10 million. In 2030 we will have more than 40, maybe up to 50, depending on how it goes. So the cities are growing. So, and these are infrastructures that are growing. So you cannot change the infrastructure completely overnight. You cannot take everything away and put everything new. So the way to do that is, of course, to use the data that are generated within a city and to make it smarter with that. And the main problems in cities from our point of view are that you have, first of all, the transportation problem. That's what we discussed, and I think we will highlight that in the further session today more. The other topic is energy consumption, which is getting bigger and bigger in the cities, and many of the buildings that have in the past been consuming energy will also now generate energy in the future. We have the environmental problem, which is at the end of the day generating emissions, and we want to reduce the emissions because the more people live in the cities, the more emissions are created, and we want to get rid of that. So we need to have solutions for all of that, and all of this is happening today. So we need to use the data that we have within the cities, and we need to make it smarter with these data. That's the attempt that we have. And this can help to be for the well-being of the people, but it can also improve the infrastructure. You can do better road planning. You can also do better bringing the people to their work where they go and when they come back in the evening here. Because you can do the better road planning, you can do a better planning of the traffic system, and you can use these smart data that we have today. But this is only the beginning, because at the end of the day, you want to integrate these systems into a bigger scale, because all the systems are today also isolated. They are not talking to each other. You have somebody responsible for energy, you have somebody responsible for the environment, you have somebody responsible for the transportation. They are not working cohesively together. So the idea is to use this data in the cloud and then start to optimize it. And that's what we believe is the future. And then you combine different data sources. So you combine weather data with traffic data, you combine data from the environment. Today we have a very polluted day, you have a special weather situation, and then you direct your traffic and your systems in a certain direction. So all of this can be done today, and this is the starting point to move now into the future. And this creates a lot of sustainability then for the future, especially in these big mega cities and in the big structures that we are building today.
سنعود إليك سيد دتمار. سأنتظر.
I will wait for you to put your headsets on. So we'll come back to you to ask you later on, to what extent do you need a strong government standing by you to help you with these projects and to give you the green light to conduct these precious projects for smart cities? When we talk about smart cities, we always think positively. We think about everything that is related to economy, to technological advancement, but we do not think of the cities that are suffering from conflicts, from wars. Don't these cities have the right to be smart cities as well? Shireen, I congratulate you for the work you're doing as a woman first, because women need to prove themselves more and more, and you are representing women gracefully and wonderfully. Not in smart cities that have everything, but in smart cities that are living extended conflicts, such as Palestine, Ramallah specifically. How are you implementing these projects, and what are you interested in and concerned with? You told me that first and foremost, the human being, right? Yes, that's right. I would like to reconfirm Lebanon, Beirut, and the idea of living in a city which suffers from conflicts and wars. But in Palestine, we have extraordinary circumstances. We're living because of the Israeli occupation of our territories. There is full control of our natural resources that are basic, such as water or even electricity. We are not allowed to produce our own electricity ourselves. We have to purchase it from the occupying forces. We have full control of our territories, borders, and transport. So the process of planning is very limited. Planning with whom? Because our geographical scope is limited, even our needs are controlled by the other entity. This is why we have many problems that we need to solve comprehensively and fully before we can move on to another step. And here, let me mention the land. We are an occupied region, two territories, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, occupied since 1967. It needs to be under the control of the Palestinian Authority, which is our own government. But more than 60% of our territories are under Israeli control. So we do not even have the land to expand as cities and to establish what we call human-centered communities even, not cities. So it's not a matter... Human settlements, yes. We are trying to preserve the human settlements that we have. For example, Ramallah, as in Beirut, all 100% of government institutions and international organizations, even the private institutions that follow public institutions, are present in the city of Ramallah, which is limited. It is high density. It cannot expand to the extent that it cannot assimilate more residents, and to the extent that it cannot provide for the needs of its residents in terms of water and electricity. So we need to decrease migration into the city, and we know that the Israelis are pushing for that. From the region C, they want them to move into the city. As engineers and planners, we are using international laws and instruments with the assistance of many international organizations, including UN Habitat, to work on how we can preserve the indigenous people in their human settlements, in their human communities, and they are either tribesmen or farmers, cattle breeders, and this is their main source of living. So the issue of land and expanding and building houses or even having infrastructure reaching them is a very complex issue. So the only way we were able to help them is, since they are an indigenous people, they live on their own land, we try to interact with them through several physical plans that would help them plan their limited location and parcels for 40 years. So thus, their development will not be arbitrary. It will be planned. And despite the Israeli impediments placed before them, international organizations, and by using these plans, will provide them the infrastructure such as roads, water, and electricity. And they gave them the space to use this land for their farming and their cattle breeding. So we're not talking about smart cities in the sense of smart technologies. No, we're talking about how to have a smart human communities and human settlements where they can live with their basic needs fully. We are discussing this issue in order to clarify to anyone following us, either in this hall or through the website or through Al Arabiya, that there are cities that are living just to feed their children, and there are other cities living for innovation, for progress, and for the benefit of humankind. This is why it is important to view cities according to two types. Each of these two types of cities could be a smart city because we do have the potential for that in both types. We have seen today potentials in Ramallah, similarly as in advanced cities, and they are working together in order to achieve objectives and goals based on principles of respect to all states. And we can see the respect of your state very fully. Let me move to the other side of the coin, to the extreme level of development. Hyperloop, who knows it? Mr. Gresta. When I talk about Hyperloop, I move from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and you can correct this piece of information because this is what I see everywhere whenever I want to search for Hyperloop. They tell us you go from Dubai to Abu Dhabi in 12 minutes. How beautiful would it be? Hyperloop will do that, but not from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, as you mentioned 5 minutes ago. So what is this project, and to what extent are you the crazy person in this company?
Crazy person in the
Crazy
company.
person.
But all the visionaries are crazy. I think, unfortunately, we are not working on an Hyperloop between Abu Dhabi and Dubai yet, but we are working on a project in Abu Dhabi. It will be 5 kilometers. And it will be the first Hyperloop of history that demonstrates all the characteristics of the Hyperloop.
Let me ask one question.
Yeah.
Who knows about Hyperloop in the room? Oh my God, that's
Security
amazing.
removed the others from. So
That's amazing.
The
Go ahead.
reality is very known, but it's about the incredible capability that we will have to move people at incredible speed, safely and efficiently. Now, when you analyze how we build our cities right now, we've made a great mistake. We build our cities around cars, the automobile, then in reality it's auto-immobile. It stays steady for 80% of its time. And when you use it, it's stuck in traffic. And it's not really designed to actually accommodate the incredible growth that we have done in the latest years. Now, if you look at how with technology we can solve the problem, you immediately realize that we are already late. We had the technology years ago, but we only had to come together as a humanity to put our knowledge together to solve one of the biggest problems, that is transportation. Hyperloop Transportation Technology is the first company that actually took this challenge, did a call to action, and asked humanity to come together to solve this problem. We have now more than 900 scientists working from 42 countries, and we are building the first Hyperloop in France. There is actually a certification track to go into the commercialization next year. Now, the concept is very simple. You have a capsule full of people. You put this capsule inside the tube. You take out the air from the tube so there's no resistance. And now you can move these people from point A to point B at almost the speed of sound using a tiny fraction of the energy. Now, everyone is thinking about the Hyperloop like a technology that goes at the speed of sound all the way, and you get into your seat, like Star Trek-like.
We don't feel it.
No, unfortunately, I have to disappoint you, because first big characteristic of the Hyperloop, it's efficiency. We will be going at a certain speed, and sometimes we will reach the speed of sound, but in reality, you will be constantly accelerating and decelerating.
Let's mention the speed.
Based on 760 miles per hour or 1,223 kilometers per hour. But in reality, we're already going at this speed. When I came here with Emirates, I was traveling at 1,000 kilometers per hour.
And we don't feel it.
And we don't feel it. The reality is that when you are combining a combination of renewable energy by producing wind, solar, kinetic energy, regenerative braking, and in some climates where the solar panels are not efficient, we use geothermal, the combination of this can create up to 30% more energy than we consume. So the biggest mistake that we did is to create a complete economy based on consumption, starting from the car and looking at all the other aspects of economy. But it's childish to think that in a planet that has limited resources, we can design technologies that consume our resources. The Hyperloop is the first of a series of technologies that will disrupt this and will change forever the way we see transportation. That is not a consumption, but is capable not only to produce more energy, but also to make money. And this is a complete novelty.
الذي سأخبره لمن موجود.
If you're following us, I would like to tell you about a subject that I learned outside this room, because Mr. Sersdorfer and Mr. Gresta do not agree on the technical projects they work on. And I think that I'm divulging a secret here. This is why I leave Mr. Sersdorfer to comment on Hyperloop. I would like to know from you, are you convinced? Do you believe in this project? And what is Siemens doing in the same sense in the Middle East?
First of all, we are believing in developing technologies. So I think there will be also in the future a coexistence of technologies. And we have, as I said earlier, you have technologies in the cities today. There will be new technologies that will be implemented, and there will be systems also then make a breakthrough and others not. And what the future will tell us. I think that's what we have to see and how it will work. So I'm not here to judge about technologies. I'm here to say what we can do today and what we will do maybe in the future. But maybe you have an opinion, so I'm interested also what you think. Well,
I think, rails has had time to evolve, where we are building a gauge of the rail of 1.384 meters based on the butt of the two horses of the Roman chariot. So the problem of the rail is that by just augmenting 40 centimeters of this size, you can transport double the people, double the freight, and we are not doing it. Now, the Hyperloop has the possibility to actually evolve this and also integrate this into the same right of way, because we can build on pylons above the rails or aside of the rails using the same existing infrastructures.
Yes.
Now we need to come out from the legacy, and the reason is very simple. None of the rail that we are building around the world, especially the high-speed rail, makes money. These are giant black holes on our GDP of entire nations. It means less money for education, less money for the things that we need, research and development. We need to unleash humans' potentiality, and if we get rid of all these legacies that we have based on this concept of an economy that is gone, even the biggest companies, the CEO of BlackRock last year made a letter that I think should be really took in consideration from every single CEO of the planet. He said, we need to stop thinking about profits as the first, and we start to think about the social impact. That's the most important thing we need to do as humanity to actually transition into an economy of abundance, and we can do that.
And maybe I continue now.
Yeah.
So because we believe that transportation is, first of all, transporting on tracks, that's one way to do it. But the other way to do is to use electromobility. The other one is to bring the traffic also into the air, where also solutions are developed. Therefore, I said we believe that at the end of the day, it will be a coexistence of certain elements. But
So
when we talk about cities, it's also, and I mentioned it earlier, energy. And energy is really a factor where we can do a lot already today to make cities more livable and more smart. And when you really look into the facts, and you see that 48% of the world energy is consumed by buildings, and most of them are standing in cities. And when you look onto that, 80% of the life cycle costs are generated, or of the energy costs are generated while the building is operated. So we are focusing a lot on how to build buildings very efficient, and we are trying to cut costs there, but the costs are generated throughout the lifetime. So we really have to look into that. And when you put your efforts in this, then you can save a lot of energy in the future. You can make your environment much better, and this can be done by data. And we have very prominent examples, and you mentioned that I live in Dubai, actually in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, not in Dubai, but in Dubai we have a prime example. One of the biggest consumers for electricity in Dubai is the Dubai airport. And we talked to them, and they wanted to optimize their energy bill, because that's one of their biggest factors in their balance sheet. And we reduced by 20% per year on a guaranteed base their energy bill. This assumes, Minister of Environment, 25,000 tons of CO2. Or you can, on the same token, you can plant 600,000 trees to have the same impact on the world. So these are things where you really can make, within a city, within a given infrastructure, you can make things better. And that's, I think, what we need to focus on. I'm having one of my offices in Abu Dhabi in Masdar. Masdar was the first LEED Platinum building in the region.
Yes.
It was the first and the foremost energy efficiency that we showed. It was a prime example at that time. In the meantime, many followed, and I think that's also one thing that shows that when you have pioneers in cities, and at that time Masdar and Mubadala believed in that, you really can change, and now many buildings in the UAE, but also in the greater region, are looking on this energy efficiency. So this is something where you can make things much better. And
so it means that Siemens is now embracing.
هذا يعني this.
This is good. تحدثنا عن الطاقة.
We've talked about energy, we've talked about technology, we've talked about transport, mobility in the future, and I go back quickly to Mrs. Sharif to tell us about the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda that you are working on in the United Nations. How is United Nations contributing in the implementation of this agenda in all of its items and articles?
Thank you very much for asking that question. I think as a former mayor, the implementation, we already have enough talking about 2030, but now come to the implementation of the Agenda 2030. That is what we are facing now. I think I always say that it's enough declaration,
Yeah.
but we have to look for declare action. Mean that declare the action oriented on the ground. So I think this is very important. That's the reason why we are looking into the two aspects. One is the software, one is the hardware. The software here is that when you talk about cities, about smart city or smart solution and smart people, what are we talking about? The ecological footprint that we're talking about. What are really that we would like to do? For example, in this region, and then more on the conflicts situation. So what are the software and hardware that we would like to have in order to implement the 2030? This because different regions have different way of looking at it and different needs. So for UN Habitat, we have come up with our strategic plan for the next 6 years. We have 4 domains to really focus. We want to do less better. And we don't want to be everywhere. We don't want to be the jack of all trades and master of none. So we would like to concentrate on 4. One is to look into how we can reduce poverty in all regions by looking into the reduce poverty in communities between rural and urban continent. We are not only talking about the urban area, we're also talking about the rural area. Second is how we can share the shared prosperity in our city of the region equally. Because once we have a wealthy region, we will have a wealthy cities. So this is very important.
Yes.
The third is talking about the climate change. What are the climate change? What are the smart solutions that we can do for an area of climate change? And the fourth is on the urban crisis in terms of prevention and reconstruction.
Yes.
And these are the focus for UN Habitat for the next 6 years to implement. And we have 12 outcomes for this particular areas. And for us is to provide a better quality of life for everybody in an urbanizing world. Because it's urbanizing to me is not only in cities area. Because why people move from cities to urban area? Because they cannot find what they want in the city, in the rural area. So we also urbanize. How can we have both areas, same facilities? And how we can have development in these conflict areas? For example, like in Arab, I would like to share with you areas that we have the hardware. The software is also involved education. I think education is very important. How smart technology is it? If education is not there, it's very simple. Solid waste management, for example. If you have an education, you will have all the smart solution. But if people still throw rubbish everywhere, the culture is not changed, then it still cannot. So for example, like in Iraq, we have at least planning and building back better for the area. Where you also have the serving tenure right for the vulnerable group Yazidis. We're having that. And also in ministers in Lebanon, we are working in your urban profiling. And we're also looking into the infrastructure support areas for your areas, and also technical and institutional. So how we can implement the new urban agenda, that's it, is 2 ways. One, looking at the software, and the other one is the hardware.
Let's move to Lebanon, because you spoke about Lebanon. Lebanon, معالي الوزير.
Lebanon, Your Excellency Minister, does politics play a role in development? If you issue a decree, for example, a resolution, we talked about the motorcycles or the vehicles that you try to use in the city in order to alleviate the use of cars. So will we have another politician that will tell you, Minister Jreissati, you cannot do that? No, I don't think we have a problem in this area. We have many problems in other areas. I will say 2 things with regards to Bibop. I believe your project is amazing. I hope you try in other cities before coming to Beirut and implementing it in Beirut, because as I've heard, I think it's enough for us to dream and be afraid. But I think invention always starts with a dream, and then it becomes a reality. I believe the importance of your company is you are dealing with the most precious good in the world, which is time. If you can move me from one city to another in this speed, this is the future. This is what we have all to encourage. In Lebanon, we also have goals and objectives, and I'm committed with the commitments of the Lebanese government with regards to public transportation, which is the most source of pollution in Lebanon. And we have a target that we've committed to internationally by 2013 to have 20% of the cars and transportation in Lebanon to be either electric cars or hybrid cars. And this is, of course, a challenge. We started implementing because we have incentives. We provide incentives to importers. The tariffs, custom tariffs, have been decreased. We have no tariffs on electric cars and hybrid cars. We cannot only just look into the fact that people are aware of pollution in the environment. We have to have incentives at the beginning, and then, of course, we have to rely on awareness and partners like the UN, starting and to build a new generation, to raise a new generation that is aware of environment and how to protect the cities from pollution. And today we are talking about megacities. To end with Shireen on a more human aspect. Shireen Shille is working with human communities. You're working with the Bedouins that the Israeli occupations tried to displace from the settlements. What are the characteristics that make human settlements or human spaces livable? Any place to become livable, it should have the basic needs and basic services. These basic services are related to many dimensions. Infrastructure, of course, we should have basic infrastructure. Streets, they should have access to streets to reach work, to reach their household. They should have health clinics, schools. The children have to have access to school. We always say that there is what is called service diameter. My child should not walk for 1 hour to get to school. If you are in primary school, you should only walk 10 minutes to get to your class. If I want to provide a human settlement with the basic needs that will make this community livable, that will make this community more humane without outside pressure, I think this is the basis of any human settlement for the settlement to become livable. They should have sustainability. They should have services. They are connected to their environment, to their neighborhoods. And when we say that settlements should be environmental friendly, because in the end they want to live comfortably. I want to go back to a basic disregarding the limitations that we are living in. We were able to go in par with technology on many levels. Solar energy, for example, even though we do not have spaces to place solar panels, we are trying on the national level. There should be a national strategy, and this is very important, even though we have many challenges. But in order to overcome the challenges, we have to find innovative solutions. Yes, we are under occupation, but we want to live in a comfortable manner in livable spaces. This is why we try to find means with what we have, whether financial means or physical means. We use them to use new technologies to solve our problems. For example, we use renewable energy, solar panels. Now, most of our schools in Palestine, their electricity comes from solar panels. Public buildings today are all working on solar panels. We're trying to have digital mapping and to establish an application that we use in order to move around in Palestine. We are trying to build trains, roads. I know this is very complicated for us, but we are trying in order to be able to live safely, securely. We should have a plan on the national level, on the international level, to build the human factor, to allow the citizen to deal with technology and to provide the basic and appropriate infrastructure. Shireen Shille, God bless you for the work, and also a number of engineers that are working in your company in Ramallah. Before ending this panel, I would like to now open the floor for your questions. And we will begin with the first row. Here, Mohammed Asfour, World Green Building Council. Allow me at the onset to salute all those who are defying the impossible in order to help the citizen. My question is to Madam Maimunah, which regarding reconstruction in the region. As you know, there are many regions in the MENA that need 300 to 500 billion of dollars for reconstruction. How can we guarantee the sustainability of reconstruction? How can we guarantee to have a process that is human-centered and not only a process centered on finance and money? Madam Maimunah.
I think that is a very, very difficult question to answer when you talk about these situations. I believe in the principle of 4P, public-private people partnership. I think that is in order to do a construction or reconstruction or regeneration. I think these particular 4 areas that there must be a commitment from the public. Public here, it can be the government, political will, with the policy, and also with the willpower. And private, we need a private sector to come together and believe. And in order to get the private sector to come together to solve this problem or to mitigate this problem, we must have the enabling environment given by the factors of the government. And we also have to involve people. Sometimes that even though what we do or we provide the basic needs, if we don't involve people, then it can become a failure. So I believe that is in order to look into sustainability, these 4 factors is very important. Public, private, people partnership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please, one more and then.
مرحبا ربيع شماعي وزارة الصحة.
Rabia Shammai, Minister of Health, Lebanon, Mental Health Program, National Mental Health Program. When we talk about cities, smart cities, the aim is to improve the quality of life and to improve productivity. But until now, cities are increasing isolation and negatively impacting the mental health of people, which is a basis of sustainable development, and especially sustainable development 8, 9, and 10 that are related to productivity, mental health, and jobs. Like His Excellency said, public transportation, green areas are not only good for citizens, are also good to increase social connectedness. What are other things that we can think of when we are thinking about cities, about smart cities? So to increase connectivity, to increase social connectivity among people. You are asking this question to all the panelists. Bibop.
If you look at how we conceive the transportation right now, to start from one thing, it sucks. We are stuck in traffic for 2 hours, and we lost completely the joy of traveling, right? And they're clustering us in things that are not human anymore. If you think about first class, second class, what does it mean? We need different things in different moments of the day. If I am the same person, but I need something different when I go to work than when I come back to work. When I'm traveling with my wife, I need something different than when I'm with my boss.
And they can mingle inside the capsule, right?
Right, they will. But the reality of the fact, we designed the entire transportation experience in a very wrong way.
Yes.
What we are doing, we're working on reacquiring the human centricity of travel by having spaces where they can actually configure by your need, and you can learn, you can improve yourself, you can measure your health. There's different tasks that you can do while you're traveling, not losing your time, but maybe enriching yourself.
Yes.
And that's one big part of the equation that we need to fix. Excellent. The second part is about the efficiency of the city, because if you look on the data, shows you that since last year, the cheapest way to produce electricity in the world is renewable. And this is an historical moment, because solar and wind is the cheapest, even from the carbon point of view.
Yes.
That means that whoever will tell you from now on that they are choosing something else than renewable because of other things, they're lying, okay? This is an incredible moment for humanity, and we need to embed these new possibilities into our cities. Then, when you create abundance, and mainly is based on inequality.
Yes.
And these new technologies can actually level this. Because we're imagining travels that in low peak time, they will be free for everybody. And we can charge premium services only to the people that can afford it. And that's very
Thank you. Thank you, Gresta. One question, please, here. You are welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Sam Alamayo from Cambridge Industries. We work all over Europe and in Africa on waste-to-energy businesses. So the one thing that I wanted to ask was, waste, especially solid waste management, is one of the biggest challenge of any city, especially in Lebanon, and we see it in Cairo, all over sub-Saharan Africa as well. What are the work that you're doing around that, as well as lessons learned in making sure when you are getting rid of waste, you could also generate electricity and make sure that it provides the electricity need of the city? So what are some of the work around that area and your focus on waste management?
Just say it's money.
You're talking about the subject of the moment in Lebanon. It's the biggest challenge. Solid waste management in Lebanon is the biggest problem we are facing in Lebanon. I became minister less than a month ago, and I still have a month before presenting my plan regarding solid waste management. And this is a big challenge, and the solution should be comprehensive. It should include all of Lebanon. And this plan, of course, should also include waste to energy. And this is, yes, part of the plan. We should not only look at waste as a burden, but it's an opportunity today. And we can, through it, generate energy. We can recycle. And this is really compulsory. And I promise you that in 2019, we'll start in Lebanon to sorting from source, to implement sorting from source. And this is very important. We have to protect our environment. We have to use our waste to generate energy. And this is something that we have to do as a government, and they are working on that. And I'm waiting for that, Your Excellency.
My name is Loy Malahme from Jordan. I'm the head of innovation of Lebanese education. I want to direct my question to Mr. Dietmar and Mrs. Gresta. Mr. Gresta, sorry. I run a manufacturing business incubator in north of Jordan, and we focus on incubating startups in the hardware and manufacturing sector. And we are true believers of that our smart cities are cities who are locally productive and globally connected. So we deal a lot with open source technology. So would we ever see the Hyperloop or Siemens technology that some of their technology will be open source for us to be able to utilize these technologies and see how we can work with them locally?
So I think open source was a very nice premises, but in its global vision, it failed. What we did is to evolve this into something that is crowdsourcing, that is different. It means creating IPs and values that then can be shared across the entire community that I have contributed. This is the only way right now, I'm not saying in the future, to actually build a sustainable company.
Yes.
We are the biggest effort that humanity did to build a company like this. More than 900 people from 42 countries are working, and we are creating value for them. Now, I think humanity has to shift from a series of incentives only based on economy and the next generation of entrepreneurs will introduce new models that goes more into the direction of incentivize social good instead of economy only, yes. Right? But right now we are not there yet. I am very open, and we are open. We do crowdstorming with the entire community to actually release the technologies that are useful for other industries. It's already happening. More than 15 industries are benefiting from our technologies. Yes. But the reality of the fact is that right now, to build companies and to make these dreams come to reality, you need to create IP and value for the entire community that you're generating. In the future, maybe, yes.
We truly believe in developing ecosystems, and that's exactly what you are asking for. You are saying you have a manufacturing hub and incubator, and Siemens is providing technology for that, but you, with your incubator and with the companies that are evolving out of that, you can develop technologies. I just come back from Hanover, where the biggest industry fair in the world happened this week, and there were numerous companies that use Siemens technology, namely MindSphere now, to develop new businesses for themselves and help to develop these technologies that we all aim for. Local manufacturing, 3D printing, and all kind of things that we can think about to be locally sufficient and efficient, and also make new businesses viable there for people, creating new jobs also out of the digital economy to create new jobs which are different than the ones that we had in the past. And this is what we aim for, and this is what we go for, because there only a partnership can help.
One last question. I'm so sorry. You can, I will take this. Sorry. Time is over, but I want to take it.
مساء الخير.
Evening. Yusuf Al-Shawarba. All that we have discussed today really is related to my business. What I've heard today is very important, but I would like to say that smart cities that can positively employ IT, ICT for the service of the city, for optimizing the services in the city. We cannot separate any sector of these sectors, but I'm talking about in general challenges that cities are facing. Of course, they are similar. We have similar challenges, but there's a big difference between enabling the indigenous people, like Shireen talked about, who are facing challenges that are different from challenges of other cities because of internal displacement due to a lack of services in rural areas. I'm very proud of this meeting. I'm very proud of the panelists in Amman. By the end of this month, we will have the first 5 megawatts that are being generated from waste that will cover 5% of electricity bill in Amman. Thank you for intervention. Before coming here, I read an article that says that Amman will become a smart city soon. Thank you for intervention. Very quickly, because we are out of time. Last question by Khalid. Your name is Khalid, right? Yes. Yes, you remembered my name.
Hi, I'm Khalid. I'm from Casablanca, Morocco. And I'm the regional director for Demo Africa, which is a venture-oriented program that works with African tech startups. Yeah. And in the means of saying that we want local solutions for local problems, in Africa, when we're talking about IoT solutions, and you're going into the African markets and you see that those people cannot afford, very basic needs, but still have the problems of large mortality rates on accidents, and they need solutions. I want to know from both Mr. Gresta and the director of Siemens, what do you think would be the best way to either lower the cost of innovation to solve these problems in Africa?
So I'm particularly excited about what's happening in Africa. Africa has an incredible opportunity right now to leapfrog, to actually not repeat the same mistakes of the past. They don't have all this big infrastructure. They don't have billions of dollars invested in silly things. They haven't invested in nuclear. They have a white paper to write. Yes. And incredibly, they can write with their own knowledge. Tapping in their own engineering skills. There's an incredible new, beautiful woman movement that is starting in Africa. And their kids of every age are embracing this movement. Now, we need to actually give this power a voice, okay? And that's a responsibility of the governments. But these kids have the power also to overthrow the governments that are not listening to them. So you have to be very careful of what's happening in Africa. So the opportunity that you can applaud, it's legal to applaud here in the water economy. Yeah.
That's
so, but I want to add, so embracing new technology is the way to go. And this is the insane mode that can drive Africa to the future.
we see the young people in these countries calling for these technologies, and the technologies are available. Yes, the government needs to support it. If the government doesn't support it, I think the people can build this locally. And we have many instances in Africa, in many places, in many small rural places where they use already technology and they can build it. But you need a sustainable infrastructure nevertheless. You need electricity, you need water, and you need all the things that we said before. So somehow we need to help these people to build this, and technology is there.
إنه عصر المدن لكل الموجودين هنا يأخذ المدن العربية.
It is the era of cities. Arab cities have to place future plans based on scientific premises that will help them to flourish, that will provide better lifestyle for residents, for citizens. We've talked about challenges, about obstacles, about technological meals with Mr. Gresta, with Mr. Seersdorfer. We talked about the environmental means also with His Excellency Mr. Jreissati. Of course, developmental means. We've talked about them with you, Madam Sharif. We talked about construction with Shireen Shilli to improve all of that, to improve lifestyle, to improve connectivity, livability, and to encourage innovation, to innovate sustainable cities. It is primordial to understand that all ideas, no matter how intelligent, no matter how distinguished, they will remain ideas if they are not implemented in the optimal manner. This is, let's go. These are your ideas. Let's build smart cities together. Thank you.